first of all, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
You just were whooping RVJ, so I guess you're feeling pretty good.
No, it wasn't whooping. It was practice. Practice don't matter.
Yeah, I'm kidding. Yeah. It doesn't matter to if you lose, if you beat everyone.
It doesn't matter if you're trying to stay friends and train for a while.
So, yeah, like I think RVJ has a really tough challenge ahead of him in Sasha Andreev, and you might be pretty much one of the only guys that can kind of simulate. Maybe he's much smaller, more compact, but it's pretty much the same thing that you apply that he will apply. How do you see his chances?
I like RVJ's chances. I think RVJ, if it goes inside, I think RVJ with a larger hand can make it more of a higher knuckle, palm to palm, keep it out of the wrist to wrist that Andreev wants to be. So I like RVJ in this match. I like him a lot. I think I would make him the favorite. I know that's not a popular opinion, but I'm pretty confident RVJ is going to do well. Now, I think RVJ versus Crosby would be a more interesting match, but I like RVJ versus Andreev.
I think it's an excellent match just because of the clash of the styles, and I think everyone already knows what the other guy is doing, so there's no running away from that, and they kind of there's no chance that Sasha will start the top roll at any point.
No. And I think Sasha gets the jump off goal every single time. I think he'll win that battle. I think RVJ with the longer arm has the ability to kind of stop a little bit, lean back, even if he has to open up a little bit. So now RVJ might be stuck on a losing side, but he's still got lots of pronation left in him,
Okay. Because I watched that practice. I watched what RVJ said after this, and I'm really excited for that match. It's one of those East versus West matches that makes sense, So,
right.
For me, it's very hard to pinpoint how good RVJ is. Everyone in North America praises him. We just don't know.
It's hard. Yeah, and in your first time, that is a wild card because. Your first time leaving the country and your first time pulling someone that there's a lot of first times that can stack up, and any one of those things don't mean a lot, but a whole bunch of them mean a little each, man. And it's it still hits me when I go over there how off-putting it can be.
Yeah. Well, at least everyone will speak English there, so that's good. Except Sasha.
Yeah.
So you just got back from work. What is your daytime job when you're not bending arms?
I'm an engineer. I run an engineering department for a small company that manufactures trucks.
Okay. So I think you kind of implement a lot of those things in your training, from engineering part, the thinking about your kind of training, because it's so close to your style, and I can see some parallels there. Do you agree? Because
yes.
a lot of people will
I agree.
will take their training completely different. Yeah, and I usually see this with with a lot of people that actually make things. They will think about different kind of tools or different kind of application for those tools.
Yeah, and I like the people who make stuff. It's just in America, bodybuilding was so popular for so long. So many training programs just simulate bodybuilding. Where I like what the power lifters do, where you're actually measuring how strong you are. Okay, so and I don't just throw gobs and gobs of volume. I throw a lot of volume on when I need it, but the basic program isn't a lot of volume. Like in a day, like in one workout, 36, 40, 50, 60, 70 reps total.
Mm.
30, 40 minutes, maybe. Yeah, there's not a lot of volume. I mean, a lot of the weight is 80% or less than your max weight, but there's not sets of 50, there's not sets of 25, there's just, unless it's like a rehab day, but for the most part, there's not lots of volume.
Okay. Yeah. Because you have one of the most unorthodox approaches to arm wrestling, but like I can see it fully in your style, like 110%. So it all makes sense. In my head, it all makes sense. And I guess in your head too.
Yes, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. So before you get into arm wrestling, did you have any other sporting background?
I mean, in high school, but I left high school when I was 18 years old. I didn't start arm wrestling until I was 35. So nothing from high school carried over.
That's so crazy. You started at 30. That's so insane. A lot of people are afraid to start at 19 because they think it's too late.
Oh, yeah. I think in your 20s would be about perfect. There's some theories about kids, young, like high school age kids, where they might not have the bones developed or the tendons attached. There's a big fear around here about, it's not a big fear, but it's a common concern about kids playing American football at high school age. And a lot of them it's like joint problems and stuff. Like if they get hit and they tear their knees or their shoulders off. And
Yeah.
I read where when you're young, your bones are real smooth, right? So it's easy to detach those tendons. But as you get older, your bones grow bumps and stuff on them, like at the joints. And that gives the tendon something to bite onto. So it's less easier to tear a tendon, off a bone once you're older, So there is thought where, I mean, some people think that maybe you don't start playing American football until you're closer to college age, where we start kids playing American football at like 6 years old. We start them really young.
Yeah. It's like from my experience, arm wrestlers like that do really well usually like have a gift for arm wrestling with any kind of gift, strong hand, back, however you look at it. But the guys, they usually come into the sport and they very fast rise to the top. And there are a lot of guys that, been doing this for 10 years and cannot get anywhere, But from young people, like if you start at 10, like I know guys that started at 10 or 14, everyone who gets to teenager age, like 17, 18, they're really good. And then you cannot kind of figure it out where they had the gift or they did the job, developing those skills, those standard, everything is developed. I think Kazakhs are a great example. They start super young.
They start young, so they build coordination and then some capacity. And then when they hit puberty and they hit their different growth spurts, now their body wants to grow anyways, and they're triggering those aspects for arm wrestling. So the body just overcompensates that So that makes sense in that regard, as long as you keep everybody healthy,
Give good development, not just 100% arm wrestling based, but do some other stuff as well. Take care of your body. Because I see this like with young guys. We have some guys that they start at 14, they go to competitions, they cannot get any win for 2 years, and then at 16 they're beating seniors. They're just savages. And
it takes 3 to 4 years. My experience has been 3 to 4 years to make it to the national level, at least in the United States, is about what So if somebody starts and they do the job, and if they don't spend a lot of time in the amateur classes, 3 to 4 years, depending on the weight class, it takes longer to be a national level like 165 guy than it does to be a national level super heavyweight, just because the lighter weight classes tend to have more competition in them. But or say 3 to 5 years. It might take longer for the smaller weight classes, but so I tell them at the start, I go, look, you're into this for 3 to 5 years. If you're willing to stick it out for 3 to 5, it pays off. But if you think you're going to train 9-10 months and start winning state championships, you're going to be so disappointed because you're arm wrestling people who've been training for 15 years. It's really hard to catch up to somebody, after a year's worth of work, and they've been doing it for 15.
Yeah, everyone gets there in the different speed, I always say. So you don't know what's your speed, and put in work and you'll find it. You were like really good from the start. How long did it take you to reach, because I have heard a lot of stories, and I just want to ask, was it you were arm wrestling for a year and a half or two when you were arm wrestling with John Brzenk?
No, I arm wrestled for a year in Michigan, and then I went to South Carolina and got into a really good team in South Carolina. And I was with South Carolina maybe 2 or 3 years before I started getting good. By the time I started arm wrestling John Brzenk, I had been in the sport about 10 years.
Okay.
By the time I moved to Utah. Yeah, I'd been arm wrestling for 10 years before I moved to Utah. But I was in it before I started winning like state championship. Like before I arm wrestled Cleve Dean or Dave Randall, any of those guys. I was in it for about 4 or 5 years, a year in Michigan and 3 or 4 years in South Carolina. All that, I had a lot of trouble with Sally Harris and them, but that was in my year 2, year 3, year 4, time frame. But I had a really good team. I mean, I had a team that had 4 or 5 national and almost world level, like 175-pound guys on it, so our team was very deep,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because you hear stories, and I have heard stories when I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, like Hutchings started in a year, he was arm wrestling. We're saying, I'm like, cool.
No, I arm wrestled for a year. I went to South Carolina at 220 pounds, and their 138-pound guy beat me for a year. Okay. Yeah. So I weighed 90 pounds more than this guy, and it took me a year to beat him. Yeah. And then it took another year or so before I could beat Fritz. And then it was my 3rd or 4th year before I could start hanging with like Chad Silvers and Matt Harris and Kevin Hicklin and them. So, and I was still a middleweight. I was 210, 220 pounds, and these guys were 170 and 180. So it took 3 or 4 years, just with that team before I was competitive with people that were a lot smaller than me.
So on that 10-year mark, you pretty much could hang with almost anyone.
At that 10-year mark, I was pretty happy with where I was at.
Yeah, that that popular video with you and John, were in a hook, and you were doing a lot of crazy stuff there. I forgot where it was. I think that's one of the, there are some iconic matches on YouTube, and that's one of them. You know what I talk about, yeah? Which one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
It was. That was very exciting. That was in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, that's one of those matches that I return to watch a few times a year. So, which is your favorite match or moment in a sport? Which, there are different kind of things that can make people feel good, but what made you like, this was awesome?
When I beat Dave Randall in Florida, and I was only in the sport for I was in the 3 to 4 year mark. That was really exciting. That match against John in Las Vegas was really exciting, but probably the best times of my life was when I first met Team South Carolina or met the Utah team, because then winning the matches was short-lived, but making new friends. I mean, I had those friends for years. So that's what I remember most about it was the first day at practice is always weird. Nobody it's the get to know you phase. But after about a week or so, I was real good friends with the South Carolina people. We were training several times, and about 8-9 months into Utah, we doubled the practices. We'd have one at Bob Brown's house, and we'd have one at my house. And those were just fun times because that team was big and very, very good. So that's what I remember most about the arm wrestling. Not so much the matches. Every once in a while, I forget. I mean, I remembered I pulled those guys. I don't actually remember how the match went. And then I watch it again. I go, oh man, I was closer than I thought, or oh, I wasn't nowhere close. You know?
Yeah, well, like community, the arm wrestling team, the community, because you're all fighting, but not really, you know.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of the best things, and I say this to everyone. I'm like, just try to enjoy community, because a lot of people don't understand this, and I guess it's, you know, maybe different cultures have it a little bit differently, but we have good camaraderie right here as well. You know, the team helps each other, and we kill each other at practices, and it's fun. Yeah,
it just gets weird when you got teammates competing when you got close teammates, and you know, only one of you can be national champion. I mean, when you got to start pulling your teammates, that it gets dicey there.
Yeah. Especially when they're
I
close.
never competed in a lot of matches for tournaments. I always competed in money tournaments, so it's a lot easier to make those arrangements with your teammates because you didn't so much care who won.
Yeah, I understand there. Yeah. But it's you know, when someone is way behind, or you can, you know, fight for the fourth place, not the first, everything's cool. But if you know you had some good matches in practice, you know you can take that guy, you know, that's when it starts.
Well, that's when it gets weird, because you start learning secrets about your teammates, and a good teammate would tell them their weakness. But a competitive teammate just kind of stores that in their pocket and says, I'm going to pull out this card when I really, really need it.
But I need this. Yeah, that's the ace of spades right here.
Yeah. And I've seen that not in every team, but in a lot of teams. And it's usually not even the top guys that are like that. It's usually the second level guys in a team that are like fighting each other more than, you know, and it's like, guys, man, you need each other for 10 years. You really need to not structure your practices that way.
Yeah, that's the ego part. You know, that's the business we're in.
It is. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Was your how fast did you notice your side pressure was, you know, something special?
I know exactly when it happened, because I was in South Carolina for it was my third year in South Carolina when I switched gyms and met an actual legit world level power lifter. I mean, a super heavyweight power lifter who could set bench press world records, squat world records. And he's the one that introduced me to the Westside barbell system. And that's when so now I said, okay, because before that I was doing, you know, bicep curls, dumbbell curls, hammer curls. I was doing all the traditional arm exercises, basically copied out of a bodybuilding book. But then when I read the Westside barbell system, where you do a max effort day, so then I started trying to simulate the actual the arm wrestling thing, and then I could start measuring it. And then it went up, it goes up fast whenever you change something. And I was probably a month or two into it when I realized everybody in South Carolina was a really good top roller. So I still probably can't hang with them top rolling wise. But that's when I realized in the straps or the flop wrist, I was strong enough to still push them down. And then I go, okay, that's my trick. That's what I'm going to do until I retire at 45 years old, you know?
That's interesting. That's it. Like Westside barbell, like that was one of the first methods I started train with, because I was looking the same way. It was 2005 on internet, and you're trying to find out, you know, what you can do in the gym, and it's all about bodybuilding. And I'm looking at these workouts. I'm like, there's no chance I'm going to get stronger with this. You know, I want to bench more. I want to deadlift more. So I found some tapes, some old videos of Westside Barbell, and and again, speed day, max effort day, and things like that, and use all that good stuff. Have you seen the documentary movie West Side?
Yep, I watched it on the airplane. I forgot where I went.
Yeah.
It wasn't Turkey, but it was where I've traveled before Turkey. I watched it on the airplane there and back.
I thought it was awesome. Like, Louis Simmons is a crazy guy, but
yep,
you know, he gave so much for the sport. You know, that's amazing. And even for our sport, to be exact, like Giannis has max effort day, and he doesn't have speed day. He calls it dynamic day, basically.
Well, so does Louis Simmons calls it dynamic day too. It's everybody else calls it speed day. So did I.
Yeah. The idea is behind it is the same, because a lot of people will try to do max effort every day, you know.
Yes, I got people that'll message me and he says, "I'm following your program. So on Wednesday, I maxed out 5 exercises."
Yeah.
I
now
never said that.
Now I'm in a hospital. I'm gonna come out next Tuesday and hit them again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the system clearly works, and I think, you know, when I'm talking about arm wrestling training, people are looking like it's something special. It is, but it also isn't. We shouldn't be looking at sports that doesn't build strength because it's strength sport. We should be looking at strength sports and how they build strength and apply it for arm wrestling. You know, from bodybuilding, I can take recovery stuff like really well. All that full range, it doesn't matter how you do it. For me, it's all recovery. The partial movements, all that, that's special, you know. So, who has the strongest side pressure you have ever felt? I know, because you cannot feel your own side pressure.
Yeah. I've arm wrestled Dave Chafee several times, and I've arm wrestled Dennis and Plinkoff several times. And on both of them, I kind of faked them out a little bit. So I like jumped go, and I got all the way into where I needed to be on both of them. And both of them ripped me all the way open I caught them by surprise, and both of them ripped me all the way open at the time. And that hurts. I mean, that actually hurts. So that, and Andre Pushkar, not so much side pressure, but it was funny because, you know, when you're a middleweight, you're pulling these world elite super heavyweights, they sometimes like back off a little bit, you know, they're not that worried about you. So and the thing is it ain't right, but you kind of start expecting that. You expect, okay, this guy's not going to take me serious. Andre didn't give a shit who you were, man. When he stood up on his tippy toes and he got ready to smash into you, I could feel myself getting weaker watching. I go, oh, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt so bad. You know, it's like, I mean, I might be in the best shape of my life that year, you know, because if I'm pulling Andre Pushkar, I'm like in Russia, you know, so I prepared for a long time. And when that man stood up, I go, oh my God, this is going to be bad. You know?
He did this right before, and
he's already big. I mean, he's got to be 6 or 7 inches taller than me, and then also he's growing. And I mean, I can feel myself shrinking as he inhales.
So Dennis and Dave would be both of those guys that had. But did you felt side pressure, or did you felt maybe something else? Because, you know, it's not hand to hand. I would say Dennis.
Yeah, well, they both kind of pull different. They don't pull peg to peg. They both pulled me kind of palm to palm, but it's kind of this open
drag.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm locked into side pressure. You know, I'm sideways. They're not. And it, you know, people who do shoulder rolls are usually pretty good going sideways, but even then, that's a taller opponent, and they're mostly pushing down on you. You know, I don't feel too many people pull peg to peg against me.
Yeah. Well, I ask because I think it's interesting, because like you might you might have the best pound for pound, and it's kind of ridiculous just looking at what you can do on table, just this year you had that practice with Michael, and it's like two completely opposite styles. In my head, they couldn't clash. I'm like, I think, how can you have that much power to bring Michael down? And you have it.
Yeah, that was a fun time. If Michael ever invites you to his house, you got to go. That whole setup is interesting. That gym's built onto his house. His the front doors to his house are glass, and let's see, a meter's 3 feet. So I'm guessing his doors are 4 meters tall. They're like 12 or 13 feet tall.
Oh.
So the front doors to his house are all windows, and they're like 4 meters tall with curtains. It's the whole experience is just weird. Everything down there is big.
Yeah, his gym looks sick. It looks like good place to hang out. And
I mean, his house looks like it's 6,000 or 7,000 square feet, but they're only living in maybe 1,200 of it. But it's all spread out, so you got these like little living areas and these great big like deserts in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you got to go down there. He should do like a house tour sometime on one of his videos, because
welcome to MTV Cribs.
Yeah,
MTV Cribs.
MMT Cribs.
MMT Cribs. Yeah. So your arms were sore after that?
Yeah, because whenever I go on a trip like that, you do a lot of arm wrestling, and then we do it's a lot of arm wrestling, then it's a lot of working out, because especially in this day and age of YouTube, everybody, they want to get
Content.
as many videos in as possible. And so you pack like 7 or 8 days worth of training into 2 or 3 days. And, and I'm on vacation, so I'm not eating the best. I'm drinking too much. I'm not sleeping well,
Dude. But you're going to face Michael's protege, to be, how we can say, Corey West. And Corey looks like a gorilla.
He looks like he's bench pressing 550 pounds, and I never got near 400 in my entire life.
Dude, he looks big. I'm interested because I don't think he can go sideways with you, but maybe he can go sideways with a lot of rotation. That's how you feel about that match? Because everyone picked you like a clear favorite. You sold out on Stake Kings in 2 minutes or something.
Yeah, well, I'm very popular, but I plan to park myself in the center of the table and take up as much of the center as I can. So if he tries to do anything outside or up, if he takes my hand, I just want to make sure that my knuckles are still high and I'm leaning into the center of the table. Mistakes I made with Jerry Caderet, some of the mistakes I made with Michael Todd when we were practicing is I was too far to the outside of the table. So if I just commit, if I fill up the center of the table as much as I can, and these really big guys can't get too far into the center of the table because they usually have a pretty big waist. So I think if I can get in there and I can get my shoulder behind my hand, then it's a rough day for both of us. But usually those rough days for both of us usually come out in my favor.
Corey's like 400 pounds or something, yeah?
I know. When I first started, I remember the first day I saw my first 400-pound arm wrestler. And it was Sean Latimer at a UAL event. And what was funny was he was talking to 2 other 400-pound arm wrestlers, this great big guy out of Louisiana. And I can't remember the third guy. And I standing there with Bob Brown. I go, every one of those guys is over. He goes, yeah, they're all over 400. And I go, I've never seen one before, Well, I guess Clean Dean was over 400, but when I saw him, he wasn't 600. He was, he was fairly old. But other than him, like I never saw a 400-pound man in his 30s until I'd probably arm wrestle until I was in the UAL. I mean, I was a long time in the sport before I saw super heavyweights that big. And now they're everywhere. Now they're not that rare.
Yeah, we have a lot of giants. Like after Levon's match, I read some comments and it was like, we need Brian Shawn to get into arm wrestling. He's big. He could be. And I'm like, dudes, we have giants. The problem is they're just not that good. He's just better.
Yeah.
We have a lot of those, and not only in USA and here in Europe as well. And like Alex Cordeche is a giant dude. Like he and Crossy stood next to each other. It's like you and me.
Yeah.
Or Rob and Sasha.
But they'll, the sport's growing. It's becoming, just the fact that we have so many bigger people. And 5-6 years from now, a lot of 400-pound guys they're going to start being fast. I mean, there's a lot of upward potential in the sport when we start getting bigger and bigger people in it.
Yeah. I'm very excited to see where the sport goes because it's different. The landscape is different already. It maybe not that different, but it's changing. You can see it in front of your eyes how everything is kind of changing. We have more exposure. Before that, no bodybuilder, no power lifter wanted to go and arm wrestle on table. Like they were looking at this like it's they're devil and it's a holy water and they're just running away. But when I was in Dubai, there's table right in the middle of the gym, and whoever goes over, Larry brings them over and they arm wrestle. And it was so crazy. And no one kind of said no.
Yeah.
So, all we need is a little bit more exposure. With that will come money, and we will see a lot of interesting people coming into our sport.
I definitely agree.
So, do you practice top roll?
Do I what?
Practice top roll.
Yeah, I practice not the finishing part. I practice against people top rolling, so I mimic what they do, not so much to try to take their hand, just to try to keep the hand flat. Yeah, I practice top roll to prevent as defense, not as offense.
Okay.
And I've been doing that for about a year or two now as a way to try to get my hand back. And my benchmark is a guy named Dave Morocco in Maryland. He's about a 7-8 hour drive from here. So I go over to his house about once or twice a year, and I pull him fresh. I warm up and I pull him fresh. And every time he goes, "Your hand's getting better. Your hand's getting better." And I'm getting to the point where he might not be able to get away. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting to the point where I might be able to stop that hand. Okay.
Because one of the rare occasions where you top rolled was in Jerry's match.
Yeah.
You kind of figured out because he's just right taking over that center, and you want to lean in, and he just jumps right on your hand.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked, for a little bit, at least something. The match was, you gave yourselves, but like watching that match, and then watched it like, I think 2 weeks ago, I felt that you didn't have confidence to execute it correctly.
Well, and I was running out of table with him. I like to pull inside, but I don't like being wrist to wrist. I like pulling inside, palm to palm, and pulling Jerry palm to palm when he since he drops his hand anyways, it just gives it to you. But then he started just flat pushing me straight across my elbow pad. I was having a hard time getting back on the table,
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever pulled him. So that was intimidating too. Cause I like my chances at that match, but it takes me a few times to pull somebody to learn some stuff, and that was the first time I'd ever gripped up with him.
Yeah. Well, that's so weird. That's so weird that, that was the first time with Jerry. Yeah. Well, Jerry doesn't, I think he's very elusive in that case.
Yeah.
He showed up to some practice, and now Chan Shaw thinks he can beat him. So
yeah. Jerry shows up when there's money.
He shows up where there's money. Yeah, well, we'll see him in WL when they return and all that good stuff. But what about your hand? Like, you are comfortable with the flop wrist? or it's still better if you have the cup or at least something?
I would prefer not to lose my hand just because it hurts.
Mm.
But just because I lose my hand doesn't mean I'm still trying to win. So that just means I push a little harder, a little lower.
Yeah, because in the Zuluya match, you didn't let go, and you could have kind of do a slip or something, but you were so stubborn at holding on. And I remember,
yeah, that Zoloff match was not one of my better days.
Yeah, well, I don't think it felt like losing. It felt like unfinished job, because you went inside and then you still got good round, and for at least for me, it didn't feel like you were losing. It was just kind of unfinished business.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. So if John wants to pull you, would you pull John?
If John legitimately asked, if some third party person tried to promote it, I would refuse it. But this goes back to teammates things, right?
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with John. I spent a lot of time with like Jordan Sill, Chad Silvers. I spent a lot of time with a lot of really, really good people. It would be very hard for me to pull, it'd be very hard for me to pull one of those guys, and all they'd have to do is call me and I would go to their house and we could pull as many times as they wanted in their garage, And John's a weird one anyways, just because I've known him for so long. Even if I was pulling him, I would still be rooting for him. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, it's good to see him back. It's just, that somehow he cannot lose his level. He comes back with chance ripping everyone apart, like solid good arm wrestlers, and he just parties all night and then beats Chance Shaw.
John has a singular approach to it. John's training has like no ego in it, and he's the only one I've seen definitely at that level. I'm not sure if I've seen anybody who can adopt that approach anywhere close to him, but John's approach to training and practice is singularly his.
It's just practicing without care of losing.
When you practice with John, you go home thinking you can beat John, because John is in his bad spot the entire. When John pulls you, he puts you where you feel the strongest and he feels the weakest, and that's where he works.
Yeah.
And if it's not working, it's not working. He doesn't like freak out and keep coming to the table. He just says, "Oh, well, I'll see you next week." He comes back.
Yeah. Like I just, I have been to John's house once. We arm wrestled there, but I have my hypothesis why John is so great and what made him. First of all, it's like, everyone has gifts, and he has, I think the hand gift is there, but I think his approach of practices from what I heard from you and from everyone else, it's really a lot of work in different positions, developing different kind of skills, and then he kind of can really fast understand what you're going to do, and he just has that thing in his arsenal to bring it back.
Right. And he's since he practices so many different positions, he doesn't get uncomfortable in any, because he's been in it before. If somebody puts you in a position you've never been in before, you kind of freak out, or you got to think about what to do. But since John's in all those positions all the time, he doesn't have to pause his thinking. He just automatically adapts to it. So it's probably the way maybe the martial artists train or something, where you have to react quickly, but you can't be contemplating your options. You have to go with your instincts, and so you probably do that by just going over all those positions as much as you can.
And this is, whenever I do any kind of training video, just showing some, different exercises, people will comment. At least one comment will say, John Brzenk said you don't need to train, you can just arm wrestle. And I'm like, there's no chance you can arm wrestle like John. You will go and you will fight for your position where you're strong. You never give, it's very hard to find something like that. And I think it's very hard to be, in that position when you are the strongest guy in the club, put yourself in that position. But yeah, it's John is special that way, and I'm very happy to see him versus Dimitri. He's pulling Dimitri Kachan, or I think, and then he's pulling Paul Lynn, the big orc. Well, we'll see. Do you think John will win?
Man, nobody bets against John. Paul Lynn's strong, and I talked to Paul Lynn a few times. Paul Lynn was supposed to come out when RVJ came out, but he was busy.
He had football.
And I talked to Paul Lynn. Where was I? I was at a tournament. Oh, it was in Maryland, and we were talking back and forth. I said, Paul, I mean, John knows where you're going to be, and he's got a hand to put the brakes on it. And you're not going to out top roll John, but weird things happen.
Weird things happen for sure. Yeah, I think they made some stakings, not a bet, but something like a stake that John needs to win every round, so you win the money if John wins every round.
I saw that.
Kind of incentivizing
him. See,
not to play with.
Now that's a different training. If you go into a super match where you only have to figure out how to win one round, that. Yeah, I would approach that completely different.
Yeah, the same thing was with Dave and Levon, because Levon has stated that he will not lose a round, and Levon looked monstrous, just monstrous.
Yes, he did. He did.
Do you think anyone? Do you think, like everyone else, it's Vitaly and maybe someone else, maybe Michael, maybe Devin, but?
Well, Vitaly for sure. Chubby Devin, maybe. I don't know. Boxing Devin looks awfully small. But you wonder how much of Chubby Devin is still in Boxing Devin, because it looks like he just stopped Michael Todd's hand. You know what I'm saying? So Boxing Devin, his hands might be just as strong as Chubby Devin's hands. So, Boxing Devin might be able to, Boxing Devin might be able to do that to Michael Todd again, except he did it once, and now Michael Todd knows. So he will get a different Michael Todd at the rematch. So that would be interesting. But I was impressed with Chubby Devin's match with Michael Todd.
Yeah, that was like really, because all the odds were against him from the start, and you didn't expect it to go that way. I expected when I saw Devin that he would do good, but I thought, well.
Yeah, that was, he ran a class on him that day. That was impressive.
Yeah, Michael's now like, I'm going to be 300 pounds. No more diet.
But 300 pounds ain't shit anymore. You got to get to 400.
Yeah. Well, soon it's like a limit. There's a classes for up to 150 kg.
Yeah.
just for people like Levin and Devin and Michael.
And they got different rules. They get a different table. They get different rules.
Bigger pads as big as the table.
Yeah.
Bigger straps for sure. So, what else I wanted to talk about? What is your motivation to still do this?
I'm making one big last run. I want to crack the super heavyweight elite in North America. So I want to be with Chafee, Cataract, Michael Todd, Devin. Seems like there's more than that. Should be more than those four. Dave Chafee, Devin, Michael Todd, Jerry Cataract. Is it just those four? Yeah. I want to beat one or two of them. I want all of those guys to go, man, that son of a bitch Hutchings is strong. That's what I want.
I think they say it already, but
no, I don't want them to say he's strong for a 200-pound guy. I want them to say, he's strong for a 300-pound guy.
Okay. And this is the question that I ask everyone is, why do you love arm wrestling? What's the best part? Is it community, like you said?
It is now. It certainly is now. I'm actually liking the whole coaching, mentoring thing now. It wasn't always, when you're climbing the mountain, you get the adrenaline rush when you're constantly improving. When you hit a peak or you get up there and you kind of plateau a while, I lost my interest and motivation for a while. But yeah, it's pretty cool. To be honest, having all these famous people as friends,
I know.
It's pretty cool when somebody famous, and you kind of make a joke or something, they recognize you, they come over. So, it's the community of arm wrestling is neat. And, and we're all supportive of beginners. Beginners text message me all the time. Y'all can come to my house anytime you want. You can come to our practices. All that's wide open. But in that big, broad community, when you put in the work, there's the smaller, like elite type community. And it's pretty cool belonging to that. It really is.
Yeah. Community is like, it's so interesting, when a lot of people, arm wrestling is like getting really, really big. And if you're watching Devon, you're like, and someone comes to me, do you know Devon? I'm like, yeah, I have him on speed dial,
Yeah.
Or we chatted like 2 days ago, and oh my God.
I think it's community for a lot of people, because you see people quit or retire, then come back, then quit and come back. And they're not coming back because they're making another year's worth of salary.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? They come back and they pull tournaments that don't pay any money,
Yeah.
or they come back, they train for 18 months and they pull for $300 or $400.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming out of retirement for the money, but they'll come out of retirement multiple times if there's a tournament or a fun or something. So I think it's community for pretty much everybody. Everybody that's been in it for more than 5 years, I would say it's probably community.
And I think it's also that adrenaline rush that you can get, work out your demons in a practice or something like that. And I always say there's no one's kind of retiring from arm wrestling or leaving arm wrestling. They might say it for 10 years, but eventually everyone comes back.
Everybody comes back.
We
had the Worlds in Florida here not too long ago. And then so my Facebook's blowing up and I'm going, hey, you quit arm wrestling 12 years ago and now you have a medal. It's like all these people who I remember them quitting arm wrestling. I remember being told personally, and they're all down there with their USA shirts and their medals. I'm going, you guys suck at quitting. When I quit, I'm going to quit better than everybody.
But you're no quitter.
No.
Yeah, it's like everyone comes back eventually. But yeah, you have to have that pull of maybe 3-5 years, and then you can kind of sticks it for life, because you might leave it for some time, but eventually opportunity rises, or you just like, okay, I'm coming back. And
I'm telling you, if people get into it and they're driven by victory and conquest, and after a while, it's the pursuit of excellence, and sometimes they come back and they're working on themselves, or they're coming back to prove something to themselves. I seriously think this pursuit of excellence is what's driving a lot of these people that have been in it over 10 years,
Yeah. Well, man, thank you. You're such an inspiration. I just love talking with you. It's really fun.
Same goes for me, man. We'll do this anytime you want.
You have a new YouTube channel.
It might be the single greatest thing on the internet right now. Mm. You can probably delete all your other bookmarks and just go to YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. I'll post that link in the description so you can find it there. Thanks everyone for watching. Yeah. Stay strong. Love arm wrestling.